Thanks.
You bet.
Is she on? Okay. So I just brought up this whole colonoscopy deal. I had a recent colonoscopy that wasn't included in my last year's speech. But so I go in there and straightforward, put you on the table, turn you on your side. And just before he started, I said, "Hey, Doc." He said, "What?" I said, "While you're in there, would you look for my ex-wife?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because that's where she always was." That crew couldn't stop laughing. It was delayed. My procedure was delayed because they couldn't stop laughing. And the doctor finally said, "I thought I'd heard every single joke about that." And he says, "And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to use it." So, oh, wait a minute, I knew something was wrong. Okay, here she goes. And by the way, I was really chastised about that last reunion. Tim made me feel like I was a pervert and a maniac and everything else, and I just thought it was informational, you know? So anyway, here we go, let's go. Remembering our past. When I was in basic training at Fort Ord, one of the things the drill sergeants would say when we took a break at one of the ranges was, "Smoke 'em if you got 'em, bum 'em if you don't." Right now, I think the appropriate thing to say would be, if you got your hearing aids, now would be an appropriate time to put them in. I'm so thankful that my long-term memory is as sharp as it ever been. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I can remember what I had for breakfast at Diamond Fire Support Base. My long-term memory is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I can recall my life and those people that have had an impact in my development. The curse is remembering all the tragic times in my life. These include my parents getting divorced, me getting expelled from Catholic school, and several instances where I made poor decisions. One of those poor decisions was to drop out of college so I could make a bunch of money at Safeway. I didn't realize at the time that the college was legally bound to inform Selective Service of any male dropping out of college. The Selective Service would then put that person's name in the draft list. When I got my draft notice, I thought there must have been a mistake. The next thing I knew, I was on a bus heading to Fort Ord to attend basic training. All of us experienced, for the first time in our life, what it meant that our lives were no longer our own. Some guys had a harder time adapting than others, but through it all, most of us graduated from basic. I was mortified when the first sergeant called out my name and said my MOS was 11B. I thought I was going to go to radio school. I would be staying at Fort Ord for another 8 weeks of intensive infantry training. Tactics, escape and evasion, navigation, and all the things that the Army thought would help us survive in Vietnam. Little did we know that all the training, although goodwill was there, it didn't prepare us for what we would face at all in Vietnam. It did, however, help most of us get into the best shape in our life. It was a lonely feeling boarding that jet and a feeling of uncertainty in our life. It was a lonely feeling boarding that jet and a feeling of uncertainty when the wheels left the ground. What lay ahead of us, but one thing we did know was that we were going there by ourselves. When we got to Nam, we were put in a group of guys we'd never met before. Then we were told what unit we would be serving with. Again, when they told me I would be serving with the Wolfhounds, I thought it maybe was a scout dog platoon. I thought that wouldn't be too bad. An amazing happened that day when I walked down a dusty trail and boarded a deuce-and-a-half truck headed for Cu Chi. During that ride, I would meet 2 men that would be going to that got killed serving in the 2nd platoon. This truly is that got killed serving in the 2nd platoon. This truly is a curse. As you all know, when we arrived back in the United States, we were given a horrible welcome, no welcome at all, and it caused us to put our service in the dark room deep within our minds. In 2003, when Desert Storm started, I felt a sense of patriotism. It was the same patriotism that I had blocked out of my mind all those years. I was no longer reluctant to let people know that I was a veteran, and I even had my awards framed and hung them in my office. In 2003, I started having all kinds of memories of Vietnam. This caused me problems, but it also made me determined I wanted to find those men that I had served with. I had no idea after I left Vietnam who had died, or who had gotten wounded, or who had come home in one piece. All through those years, I didn't think there was a day that I didn't think of these guys. I decided then and there I would try to find as many of the guys as I could. By 2004, I had found enough guys to have a reunion in Washington, D.C. When the guys started showing up at the hotel, we would look at each other, and our conversations would take up right where they left off in Vietnam. It was simply amazing and seemed like the rest of the world had gone away, and we were alone with each other. 18 of the guys, some with their wives, experienced what would be a life-changing experience. Most of us at the time had never contacted the VA and really didn't know what the VA would be willing to offer us. At the end of that reunion, we all agreed we should meet again in 2 years. I promised the guys I would continue to look for as many guys as I could. One name that kept bouncing up was Sergeant Glover. It took several years to find some of these people. Jim Brandow told me he knew a guy in Las Vegas that might be able to hook us up with a meeting space and a hotel accommodation. It started out as the San Remo, and by the time we got there, it had changed to Hooters. And one unforgettable memory was when a bunch of us heavyweights rushed the elevator and crowded into it. The elevator broke halfway down, and can you imagine having a small, crowded elevator with a bunch of Vietnam vets being trapped and not being able to get out? And it was cram-packed, too. And by the way, the elevator fan didn't work. All the guys in attendance went home with abundance of good memories. Some special people showed up: Doc Flores, Jack Slovey. Ray had almost his entire family there. Russ's family was there. And believe it or not, Willie Williams, who wouldn't even leave his house half the time, I talked his psychiatrist into driving him to Las Vegas and being with us. So that was really a big surprise. And then my daughters Tammy and Laura showed up dressed like Hooters girls and took photos with all the guys. I was even able to talk Doc Turner into attending that event. In 2008, of that reunion, is when Lieutenant Michael Wunderlich's widow and her sister showed up at the reunion. We all have Jim Calvert to thank for that. And in 2010, we went back to Branson, and our reunion was at the Radisson. I am a true believer in miracles, and I know that the good Lord sent us a special angel in Sarah Hord. Sarah is one of the most incredible people I know. She is so gracious and inventive. Her graciousness is only outdone by her generosity and willingness to go outside the box to make our reunions more than just combat vets had problems. I want to say right now that every wife that ever put up with a husband, that was a Vietnam combat vet will automatically have a place reserved for them in heaven. Becky Dasher, I have contacted the new pontiff, and he has agreed to make you a saint while you're still here on earth. As the years went by, the reality was setting in that the once immortal men that served together in Nam were not immortal, but just men. Guys were coming down with all kinds of cancers, joint problems, wore-out joints, diabetes, kidney failure, and numerous maladies too many to mention. The amazing part of our story is that most of us came home from Vietnam, were able to readjust to home life and do something normal, including a family and a career. It's too bad that it took so many years for the American people to finally realize how badly they had treated us and how they came up with a slogan, "Welcome home." For most of us, it was, if you're honest, it was too little too late. And in most of us came home with a killer within us. The killer's name was Agent Orange. Most of our guys have gotten all kinds of diseases, organ failures, cancer, plethora of other problems. It's taken years for some of us to finally go to the VA and file claims related to Agent Orange exposure. It wasn't always easy dealing with the VA, and they continued to slow walk and even deny righteous claims. Tommy Clack, who had been a service officer in Georgia for 38 years, volunteered his time to help our guys get their claims started and follow them through to the end. At the time of this reunion, we're facing our own mortality. In fact, a lot of us have died. It is clear none of us are going to get out of this world alive. We continue to encourage each other and counsel each other through some of our worst days. So many of us have been near death, but we were just too ornery to die. Russ Bruns is an example of that orneriness. When I walked into his hospital room and I saw him lying in the bed with tubes coming out of his body, he looked like death warmed over. His kidneys had just failed. I was scared, really scared, I would never be able to speak to him again. Like so many of us, there are a lot of things we wish we would have said to each other. But for whatever reasons, those words just got away from us. As far as Russ goes, it took him a while, but he recovered. And he and I just completed a demolition project in my daughter's cabin a couple of weeks ago. It was mostly Russ, I think. I think I supervised. Talk about perseverance. There's many things that have been monumental in our group. Every veteran had an opportunity to tell his story, and it was put on video where will remain for everybody to watch. I also like to note that our website, those videos are located, have over 3 million hits. In 2004, at our first reunion, it was my mission to recognize all of our service and rekindle a pride in our service that we hadn't experienced in many years. There is so much that you guys should be recognized for. When I speak at schools, I always get the same question: were you a hero? I always say the same thing: I wasn't a hero, but I served with some. What matters is that we hold each other, our brothers, in a special place in our heart. Like I told Tommy Kemp while he laid on his deathbed, I said, "Tommy, when you get to heaven, will you please look up Sugar Bear Taylor, Joel Brown, John Boyle, Freddie Hanna, and will you tell them that it won't be long before we'll all be with them again?" From the bottom of my heart, I want to tell each and every one of you thank you for supporting our Wolfhound organization. Without you, this never would have been accomplished. I truly believe that we will take memories with us when we pass. Thank you all for making my memories truly wonderful. From my heart, I love you all. Now I would like to say a few things about Tim, my son. At the first reunion we had in Washington, D.C., we had a bed sheet on the wall for a screen. And I had ordered that. That was going to cost us extra to have a place so we could do our slides. I made arrangements to get a small projector, and we had the opportunity to put slides up and so forth, and that's all the equipment we had. In 2006, Laura and I packed our Park Avenue to the Gunnels and drove straight away to Las Vegas. I rented audio-visual equipment in Great Falls, knowing that the reunion would be about twice the size as it was in the previous reunion. The 2008 reunion was in Branson, Missouri, at the Grand Hotel. Two wonderful things happened at that reunion. My son Tim, who has an audiovisual company, as well as being a pastor, volunteered to bring his gear and try to improve the experience. Another wonderful thing happened during that reunion. Jim Brandow met Sarah Hord. Sarah tried to convince Jim that the Grand was just about ready to fall off its foundation and lobbied for our next reunion to be at the Radisson, where she just so happened to be the military events coordinator. These two people, Tim and Sarah, would change our reunions forever. For those of you that have come to several reunions, I don't have to tell you what Tim brought to the occasion. As well as doing reunions, Tim is my handler filming all the veterans' interviews. A handler gives me a little bit more recognition. Doesn't it sound better? A handler? Okay. We flew thousands of miles and drove thousands of miles to accomplish our mission. I have many things to thank Tim for, but one that comes to mind is the time that he pushed me beyond my limits in the airport and I sprung a blood clot in my leg. I've been on blood thinners ever since. That's another story for later. I just want everybody to know that Tim has done everything I've ever asked him to do all these years, and I couldn't. There's no way I could have done this without him. His job has changed, and now he schedules dialysis appointments while I'm on the road. He has done all these things because he loves the Wolfhounds. I'd like to say a few words about my wife. She will be standing in line with Becky Dasher and will be ushered to a special place in heaven. A lot of people are not aware of what Laura has done for all these reunions. All of the table decorations, name tags, nameplates, just all of the things that behind the scenes. And Laura took on a huge job when she married me. I had 4 children and 2 ex-wives, and I made the decision to leave out certain information about the ex-wives. Quite frankly, I was afraid because my past would turn up, and I was afraid she was going to run away. I also didn't tell her about Vietnam, that I served there during the war. She loved me unconditionally, even though I have the same problems that most combat vets have. And every man in this room has been blessed with wonderful wives. Go home and write a letter to her and let her know what she means to you. Is Dasher here? If you can't write, record it on your cell phone. If you don't know how to do that, get your grandkid to help. In some of our cases, call your great-grandkid. And I thank you for putting up with one more speech. And I think every one of you in this room knows how I feel about you. And it's just amazing to me that, we have really come a long way. So again, I love each and every one of you, and thank you so much for being here.
Yep.